It was just a casual day in Mondstadt, though it has been a very busy week for everyone. Albedo and Sucrose are walking together in the Favonius headquarters, planning to report their new alchemical findings to the acting Grand Master. Albedo then suddenly requests for Sucrose to do the presentation alone, so that she can be more comfortable communicating with Master Jean. She reluctantly agrees, as she can never say no to Master Albedo, and starts repeatedly memorizing her lines. Albedo then heads over to another room, attending other matters. After around 30 minutes, his attention gets grabbed by a loud and high-pitched scream coming from another room. He hurriedly runs over there, thinking Sucrose might have just got too nervous, but what he saw was much, much worse. When he entered the room, he saw Sucrose in a corner, looking very shocked, with tears in her eyes. His gaze then followed hers, and he froze. Albedo saw Jean's eliminated body near her desk, presumably wiped out by someone, making him fall back in shock. The other members of the Knights also arrive after hearing the commotion, and they are just as shocked and confused as he is. Klee then hurriedly comes out of her solitary confinement after hearing familiar voices and thinking there's a party, but luckily Kaya closed the door before she could see the scary sight and request for her to play outside. Inside Jean's office, Albedo quickly composes himself and requests for everyone to calm down. He then orders Lisa and Amber to inform the people about what happened and to gather all the vision holders for a special meeting later the day, while him and Sucrose investigate around the room. They agree and leave, while Albedo starts observing his surroundings and calls whoever did this to Jean, Q. The window was broken, and is presumably how Q entered the room to eliminate her. There was some scattered paper and cuts around the room, probably from the outcome of Jean and Q's fight, but other than that, there were no other clues that could lead to whoever Q is, making him think this person is very experienced. Sucrose takes Jean's visionless anima vision and promises to take care of it, while she would run tests on the vision. He then remembers that he can use elemental sight to look for clues, using a device that he invented. That same gadget was supposed to be what Sucrose was going to present to Jean. He found elemental traces all over Jean's body, so Q is someone that wields a vision. He then interviews the nearby guards, and they claim no other vision holder went inside Jean's office that day, except Sucrose, so unless she's Q, which he doesn't think so, Q definitely entered from the window. Fischl then enters the headquarters, and says to Albedo that everyone is gathered at the Dawn Winery for the meeting, so the three of them hurriedly heads towards Deluxe's house to start the assembly. Inside the house, people were scared, confused, and shocked. They start blaming the Abyss, or the Lorange clan, for what happened, and Lisa started getting very angry, almost destroying the entire mansion. They were planning on how to take revenge on them, but Albedo enters the house, interrupting their loud chat to make an announcement. It wasn't the Lorange clan, or the Abyss, who did it, it was one of us, Albedo slowly says. If it was the Abyss, or clan, that eliminated her, then they would have also stolen important and very secret documents from Jean's office. But when he looked around, all the books and contracts that contains vital information for them were all left untouched, and there was no sign of someone even moving anything from the shelves. The same can be said for the Fatui, so it's also probably isn't them. In addition, it showed elemental traces on her body, and almost all of the Lorange clan don't have visions, and the Abyss show different elemental traces when scanned by his new elemental sight goggles. Same for delusions, making Albedo conclude that Q is likely someone among us. Lisa, being very emotional at the moment, blames Yula for being Q, if it had to be one of them, because she's part of the Lorange clan, and there has been rumors of them secretly plotting something. Barbara agrees, wanting to immediately avenge her sister, and everyone soon starts getting suspicious of her. Yula gets offended, but is too shocked to say something. Luckily though, Amber quickly comes to her defense, stating that Yula was outside of the city the entire time, defeating the literal camps. Also, just as Albedo says, if it was done by someone of the Lorange clan, she would have also stolen secret documents, as that would be far more beneficial for them than getting rid of the acting Grandmaster. Everyone then calms down, and they apologize for their impulsiveness. Albedo wants to figure out what everyone was doing earlier that day, and requests for Kaya to do the interviews, as this is his specialty. He's flattered by the compliment, and happily accepts the role, changing his demeanor from flirty and sweet to very serious and strict. He then commands his brother to bring in wine, and starts investigating everyone. Lisa, Noelle, and Amber claim to all be at the Knights of Favonius headquarters, doing their regular duties, and they could vouch for each other entering the building. Bennett and Fischel say they were together in Walvendam, going out on an adventure, and Mona claims to also be in that area, as she was out on an expedition by the Adventurers Guild. The two can vouch for her, as they met each other when they were about to finish their adventure. Rosaria and Barbara say they were in the church, but Rosaria quickly objects to her statement, as she never saw her during her shift. Barbara calmly defends herself by telling them that she was at the basement of the church doing her morning prayers to the Holy Lyre. That's why she didn't see. Venti asks what she prayed for, but Kaya stops their conversation, as he had the information he needed. Diluc and Diona annoyingly mentions that they were at their tavern after being accused by Kaya, and Venti can vouch for Diluc, as he was also at the tavern doing his regular performances. Klee starts accusing Diona because she doesn't have an alibi, but Diona fights back, saying they could just ask Margaret if they want proof of her being there. Klee quickly apologizes for her accusation, as she just saw detectives doing that on TV. Diona mentions that Q could still be Klee, but she quickly shakes her head, saying she would never do that to Master Jean. Albedo helps defend Klee by saying she was at the solitary confinement the entire time, so it couldn't have been her. He adds that it also couldn't have been him or Sucrose, because they were together the entire time, only getting separated when she was going to enter Jean's office. Sucrose continues the story from her perspective, and she admits to being the one who found the body. No one else was in the room when she entered though, and after she screamed, Albedo ran to the room, and everyone else soon followed. Kaya thinks he has all the information he needed, and requests for the meeting to soon end, so they could start fact-checking everyone's claims. Diluc swiftly stops him from leaving the door though, as he is still a suspect, and hasn't mentioned where he was. Kaya laughs for being accused of such a thing, but says that he was also in their headquarters, and was in an argument with Amber basically the entire time, about whether sprinkles or hot fudge would be the best topping on ice cream. Amber then annoyingly vouches for his claim, and comments that it's not Kaya. Albedo is happy with the information he gathered, and ends their meeting. Bennett realizes that Razor was nowhere to be found in the meeting, and wonders why. Fischel responds in a joking manner that perhaps Diluc didn't allow him in because of his dirt and poor manners. Lisa then joins their conversation to tell the real reason why, before they start making up rumors. Apparently, her and Amber couldn't find him anywhere. They looked all over Wolvendam, and the usual places he would be in, but he was nowhere to be found. Bennett is then seen visibly shocked, because he just saw Razor when they were out adventuring. He immediately runs out of the winery, heading towards Wolvendam, fearing for the worst on what might have happened to him. When Bennett finally reached Wolvendam, this is what he sees. He found Razor just peacefully sleeping under the trees and leaves, perfectly camouflaged. No wonder Lisa nor Amber couldn't find him. Bennett only saw him due to his loud snoring. Guess this is his lucky day. He then hurriedly wakes Razor up to inform him about the tragic events that just happened. The wolf boy abruptly opens his eyes with fierceness in his face, but suddenly turns into a happy expression, realizing it's his friend Bennett. In Razor language, he asks why for the sudden visit. He responds, saying he is very bad news. The unlucky man then starts reciting the entire situation, only to realize he wasn't understanding anything, so he oversimplified the explanation by just saying, "Jean, gone by a vision holder." Razor is visibly sad by what he said, and out of the blue, he questions Bennett if he did it, pointing at him. Bennett is flabbergasted by Razor's accusation, and immediately denies it, claiming that him, Fischel, and Mona were in Wolvendam the entire time, so it couldn't have been him. The wolf boy gets surprised by his remark, and turns his head in confusion. 3 people in his home? Bennett then remembers how he gets very uncomfortable when a lot of people visit, as they usually hunt the animals, so he affirms that none of them hurt any of the wolves. Razor still seems confused, so Bennett decides to go get the picture of him feeding the wolves, as proof they did nothing wrong, only to realize it was in his backpack that he dropped while running. He promises to return after finding it, and runs off. After 5 minutes of looking around, his search gets interrupted by Razor's loud growl that can be heard in the distance. It sounded like he was in a fight, and in pain. Bennett quickly stops what he was doing, and runs towards his roars, screaming to Q not to hurt his friend, and fight him instead. When he reached the area, he was too late, and all that remains were strands of his hair and pieces of his clothes. His loud growls also gone. Bennett cries in defeat, and makes a vow to defeat Q no matter what. Fischl soon arrives at the forest, because Bennett hasn't been back in a long time, and sees the sorrowful sight. She promises that it will be alright, and they go back to the city together to rest. Fischl taking note that Q must have hidden Razor's body somewhere. Meanwhile, back in the city, Albedo is outside the headquarters, pacing back and forth, very deep in thought, accidentally stepping on some flowers and glass, when Kaya arrives to tell him about the new information he gathered. With a grin, Kaya says he had proof that one of them was lying about where they were located. Albedo adds that perhaps 2 of them were lying, as he sussed out someone else in the group. They then consider the possibility of Q actually being 2 different people. Albedo then remembers that he found new clues around the headquarters, and wants Kaya to take a look at it. He agrees, and they go inside the building, entering one of the rooms, and they see that the room also has a broken window, similar to Jean's office. The room was previously locked when he entered, probably to hide the fact that it was broken into. Kaya notes how none of the stuff in the room is stolen, and it didn't even look damaged in any way, except the window. It doesn't seem like it had any correlation to Jean's elimination, but Albedo still wanted to show it to him. He really appreciates how Albedo fully trusts him, unlike some other people. Suddenly, Fischl's bird appears, saying he was asked to deliver a message from Miss Sucrose. She says that she found new clues after investigating Jean's vision, and that he should come to his base immediately. Albedo is delighted by her announcement, thinking this mystery is almost over, and prepares to head off to Dragonspine. He then bumps into Bennett and the Purple Bird's owner, looking very stressed. They then proceeded to hurriedly explain what happened to Razor during their visit at Wolvendom, both of them starting to tear up just from remembering. He then calms them down, and tells them that the mystery is almost over, because they found new clues, making both sigh in relief. Albedo then orders them to gather everyone at the Dawn Winery for another meeting. They agree, and the 2 parties leave, hurriedly trying to reach their objectives. After minutes of climbing, swimming, and sprinting around the mountains, he reaches his base, and is surprised to see Rosaria also there. He greets her, being very cautious about what she might do next, but she doesn't say anything, and just slowly walks towards Albedo, with clear despair in her eyes. She then whispered to him that Sucrose is gone, and that she's sorry. His eyes open with shock, and he urges Rosaria to tell what happened. She says she doesn't know much, but tells what she saw anyway. Apparently, she was suspicious of Albedo and Sucrose being Q, so she secretly stayed around the area, in case she might find anything interesting. She then visited their base, after hours of not hearing anything inside, and when she entered, Sucrose was gone, together with all of her notes, and Jean's vision. She most likely got taken out by Q, while she wasn't paying attention. Rosaria then handed over a piece of paper, saying it will prove she didn't do it. It was a torn page from Sucrose's journal. The note stated that Sucrose knew all along that Rosaria was spying on her while investigating Jean's vision, but didn't do anything, as she felt safe in her presence. On the contrary, she felt scared when she left the mountain, suddenly feeling threatened, like Q would eliminate her. He then thinks the page proves her innocence. He He then hurriedly goes back to the Dawn Winery, along with Rosaria, to start the emergency meeting, and finally put an end to Q. He knew he needed to solve the case now, or else more of his friends would be eliminated. He aggressively starts off the meeting, with accusing Barbara and Noelle for being Q, as they were both caught lying about where they were located earlier that day. He claims that Noelle never appeared when Jean's body was found, when she was also at the headquarters. She would have definitely come in to help if she was there, but she was completely absent. Kaya then joins in and helps accuse Barbara, as he interviewed the guards in the basement, and they claim to only see her for a split second before disappearing. Kaya even has more proof and makes Barbara wear her summer outfit. Barbara declines, as she says it's embarrassing for her, but quickly changes her mind when people started looking at her suspiciously. She changed her outfit, and when she entered the room, they could see how her legs were covered in bandages due to cuts. Cuts that is most likely caused by glass shards. Kaya then recites the story of what he thinks happened. He thinks that Barbara sneaked out of the church, broke into Jean's window, but accidentally hurt their legs in the process by the shards of glass. She then somehow managed to eliminate Jean, ran off through the window, put bandages on the cuts, and then finally wore her very long socks to hide the bandages from them. As for Noelle, she might just be her accomplice. Kaya is confident with the answer, and everyone looks at the two of them with disgust. Noelle keeps hiding her face, trying not to say anything, and Barbara looks annoyed and slightly embarrassed. When DeLuc was about to arrest them, Barbara finally says something and screams that they got it all wrong. Well, actually, only half of it wrong. She did indeed secretly left the church and broke into the headquarters window, hurting her legs in the process, but it wasn't Jean's office. She sneaked out because she needed to discuss something with her sister, something very urgent, regarding the secret that Jean has kept hidden for years. No one should ever see them discussing over it, so she broke into the window to enter, only to realize that she entered the completely wrong room. The shattered glass hurt her legs so much that she couldn't walk, but luckily Noelle came into the room and helped her. Barbara then lost all of her confidence to confront her sister, so she gave up for now, and asked for Noelle to help her exit out of the building, without anyone seeing, as it would be scandalous if one of the knights saw her and realized she braked in. Noelle graciously agreed, and carefully took her outside, without anyone noticing anything, but didn't just leave her there. Instead, she patiently put bandages on Barbara's cuts, and waited until she could walk. That's why Noelle wasn't in the headquarters when the body was found. Barbara sincerely thanked her for helping, and they promised to keep what happened a secret, because it's extremely embarrassing for Barbara, and they might get in trouble for skipping their work. The real reason why Barbara wanted to keep it a secret though, is because she also had to reveal that her big sister is hiding something if she ever told this story, and it will absolutely ruin her reputation if they find out, but she had no choice but to reveal the story now. Albedo believes their story, as it would answer the questions regarding the second broken window, and it really seemed like they were sincere. He apologizes for him and Kaya's accusation, and he starts thinking again. If it weren't them, who could possibly be? How did he or she enter the window without getting a single scratch? Armor perhaps, but he senses something not right. He then suddenly remembers something very important. He opens his eyes with fierceness and points to one of them, being sure that's he's pointing to Q, as he found the last piece of the puzzle. Albedo shouts that it was Mona who eliminated Jean. Mona defends herself, angrily pointing out that her body had no scratches, so how could she have possibly broken the window? There was no way she couldn't have gotten hurt. She doesn't even own any armor. Albedo fights back by saying that Q never entered from the window. He remembered when he stepped on shattered glass when walking outside Jean's office, and he even recalled how there was no glass shards anywhere in the room, unlike Barbara's window. It's because all the glass shards of the window were all outside. If he or she destroyed it from the outside, shards should have landed inside Jean's office, but the shards were all outside, meaning Q destroyed the glass while already inside, just to trick them into thinking he or she entered from the window. If they didn't enter from there, the only other option is the door, but since the guards claim that no other vision holder, except Sucrose, ever opened Jean's door, then it must mean that Sucrose is the only one who could have possibly done it, but she's now gone, so it's also not her. Klee questions that if Q didn't enter from the window and didn't enter from the door, then how did they manage to reach Jean? Albedo confidently replied that the only possible way is through teleportation, something only Mona can do. Mona still doesn't give up, and points out her alibi of seeing Fischl and Bennett, but Fischl doesn't vouch for her, as that doesn't mean anything if she could just teleport anywhere she wants. Mona then cries, and admits defeat, that she has been caught. She tries to teleport out, but suddenly stops her powers, as she finally learned her lesson, that destiny cannot be denied. Lisa, not so calmly, asks why she did it, and Mona claims that all of her actions are justified. She then tells the story of what happened. In the past, before Jean was gone, she saw in the future how Jean was soon going to be corrupt, and has been secretly plotting with her clan to turn Mondstadt back to its very dark state, but this time with the Gunhilder clan as the one on top. Mona couldn't believe it, as Jean always seemed so nice and devoted to her people, but this is what her foresight told her. Mona has the idea of warning the other knights about Jean's plan, but after using her foresight again, she saw how people didn't trust her, kept being mean to her, for bad-mouthing the acting Grand Master, and some people even destroyed her house after she mentioned it. Telling other people about it wouldn't be beneficial, so her only other option left is to eliminate Jean herself, for the citizens of Mondstadt, and to not make history repeat itself. After waiting for the perfect time, she eliminates Jean, breaks the window to make other people be suspicious, teleports out into Wolvendom, where Bennett would be at, and it would be the perfect alibi. After that, she didn't intend to hurt anyone else, but after using her foresight, she saw how Razor was going to reveal to Bennett that she only ever smelled two human scents, in Wolvendom, him, and Fischl, proving that Mona wasn't there, so she had to silence him before he can mention it. The same happened to Sucrose, as she noticed glittery water inside Jean's vision case, so she also had to silence her, fearing getting caught by the group. She kept trying to deny destiny, ignoring her master's teaching that you cannot, but she still did anyway, and she is now paying the consequences. After that, she stopped using her foresight, not wanting to hurt anyone else, allowing things to happen to how it usually would, and this is how she got caught. Barbara cries as she vouches for her story, as Jean's plan was the secret she tried to hide, desperately wanting to stop it. As she was getting taken away by Diluc, Mona drops a piece of paper. She says that those are the coordinates where she teleported Razor and Sucrose, so she didn't actually eliminate them. Well, she accidentally might have, depending on where they landed. She apologizes again, and says goodbye, leaving everyone in the room confused, whether or not to forgive her. Bennett and Albedo then take the pieces of paper, with brand new hope in their eyes. The end. It was the Lantern Rite Festival, near midnight, but this was when it felt like the festival was just about to reach its peak. Most of the Liyue vision holders were doing a dance performance on stage that showcases the beauty and strength of the different elements and their reactions. The performance was going really well, with the citizens cheering them on, watching with amusement. As the performance was about to finish, Yunjin signals the others that it's time for their grand finale. She waves her flag, but suddenly though, they get interrupted by a foggy gray smoke covering the entire stage. They couldn't see anything, and started panicking, but the audience just keeps on cheering, thinking it's part of the performance, when it actually wasn't. Yelan and Xiao, who was watching them from above, immediately heads towards the stage, thinking it might have been a surprise attack. Xiao reaches there first, and uses his animo powers to clear the deep smoke. When it finally faded, their eyes open with shock, as they found Ningguang eliminated, laying on the stage. The vision holders are visibly sad and panicked by the sight, making the citizens start to be concerned, starting to think that it wasn't part of it after all. Yunjin, immediately calming herself down, starts to act like Ningguang's elimination was all part of the performance, not wanting to make the people panic, as it would just make things worse. Bido helps her in this act, and urges the other vision holders to also play along. They then do their spectacular grand finale, barely keeping it together, and the performance ends. The citizens weren't fully convinced that it was part of the act, but Yelan quickly makes the people go back to their homes before they could ask any more questions, making an excuse that the festival is now over, and urges them to stay inside for now, fearing for another surprise attack. The members of the Qizang, Gunyu and Keiqing, and the other performers guide the people out of the area, while Yelan goes to the stage to investigate the body. She requests the others to stay very far away, not wanting to tamper any of the clues. Yanfei asks if she can help her investigate, as two heads are better than one, she slowly says, but Yelan turns her down, saying she works better alone, and that Keiqing and the others needs her more. She reluctantly complies, and leaves, while Yelan looks around the body. After a few hours, there wasn't seem to be another attack, so the performers meet again, near the stage, to discuss what happened. Gunyu arrives, bringing Shinha, Child, and Chi with her. She says that although they weren't part of the performance, and only watched from the audience, they were still vision holders, so she thought that they should still be included in the discussion. Yelan is glad that all of them are present in the meeting, as Ningguang's elimination is very likely done by a vision holder. She then proceeded to explain what she found. Ningguang was eliminated in one slash that started near her stomach, up until her left shoulder, making her think that this was done by a sword, claymore, or polearm user, as she never seen a bow or catalyst leave that mark. There wasn't any fingerprints or footprints near her body, so there isn't much they could go off of. She then asks if anyone found anything strange or suspicious. Gunyu then claims that she saw something out of the ordinary. When she found Shinha, her red ropes were undone, and they were all missing from her body. In addition to that, she was very aggressive, trying to attack one of the civilians, but luckily Chi was stopping her. After waiting for the perfect time, she then proceeded to sneakily put her ropes back, while she was too distracted by the zombie, calming her down. They look at her with suspicion, and Shinha narrates from her perspective. During the festival, when the smoke started to subside, someone swiftly removed her red ropes, while she was distracted, but couldn't see who it was, as they were very fast, and blended in with the crowd. That's why they were removed. She promised that she didn't hurt anyone though, let alone eliminate their leader. Yanfei then assumes that the person who eliminated Ningguang and the person who removed Shinha's ropes are the same. Out of the blue, Bido starts accusing Child, the bad guy amongst them, the same person who tried to destroy their city. She wants to put him to jail right now, as she very well thinks he did it, and her instincts are usually never wrong. Others start to agree with her, but Xingqiu doesn't, claiming there isn't enough evidence, and blaming Child is what the actual murderer would want us to think. Yanfei agrees, and requests for Child to give his defense on how it's not him. He optimistically takes the stage, and says he has two ways to prove his innocence. First, is that he was with Chi during their entire performance, drinking cocoa goat milk together. Her journal can even prove that. But Chi can't vouch for him, as she doesn't even remember being at the festival, because zombie. And second, the person who eliminated Ningguang must have been one of the performers. If Yelan claims that she was eliminated using a close combat weapon, then how would one of the audience reach her during the short time the smoke was up, concluding that the murderer is one of the performers? Xin Yan can sort of vouch for that, as she was at the most front of the stage when the smoke was up, and she didn't hear any footsteps coming from the audience. Yanfei thinks that what Child said made sense, removing suspicion of all the vision holders who weren't performers. Child is not done though, and adds that he has done extensive research on every person in Liyue, and Changyun was always someone he found interesting. He states the possibility that Changyun might have gotten too hot-blooded when the smoke suddenly appeared, as it usually happens in loud and crowded places, and he possibly accidentally eliminated Ningguang when he got too triggered and couldn't control his aggressiveness. Changyun denies his statement, saying that he never lost his cool During their entire routine, after getting some tips from Zhongli and Yunjin, Yanfei also shuts down his accusation, as it's just a very big speculation, and he had no proof at all of it actually happening. Hu Tao has an idea, and requests for her and Zhongli to go see Ningguang's body, because they might spot more clues, as she's very experienced with dealing with clients. Yelan disagrees, saying that she cannot show them the body if the murderer is still not caught. She adds that she already found every clue there is, and presented it to them, only keeping one thing a secret, waiting for a later day to show it. Hu Tao is then seen visibly sad, and says that it's a bummer that they don't have much information. Xingzhou replies to her, saying that even though it will be hard, they still need to catch who eliminated Ningguang in the name of justice. Baido fully supports his statement, and she asks that they go over everything again, in case they missed something, and the others agree. After hours of talking and discussing, they were stumped on who was the actual murderer. They agree to just continue it tomorrow, as it was extremely late. Before they leave, Yelan announces to everyone that no vision holder should ever leave the city until the person who eliminated Ningguang has been found. She has to do this to prevent the murderer from getting away, and requests for their assistance in making sure no vision holder secretly escapes. Baido says that she could make her crew surrounded the seas of Liyue to prevent them from sneakily escaping through the water, and Yelan thinks it's a great plan, appreciating her help. Keicheng also helps, stating that she could make the Millilith guard all the exits of their city. She now has this power because Keicheng will be the new leader for their nation, but only momentarily. Yelan told her, in private, to keep what happened to Ningguang a secret, fearing chaos might ensue if they just announce it out of nowhere. Keicheng agrees, and plans to just tell others that Ningguang is busy, and she's her substitute currently. The vision holders then separate. Now begins the time of looking for more in-depth clues surrounding each person, and waiting to find the murderer's slip-ups. It had been a few weeks after Ningguang's elimination, and the murderer still hasn't been caught. The vision holders weren't allowed to leave the city, making some of their work and plans be postponed. Yelan had previously tasked Yanfei with personally investigating every vision holder, a job that she happily accepts, as she doesn't have much work because of their quarantine. She went around all over the nation, looking for clues, and she eventually visited Baido's ship. She wasn't around at the time, but got permission to enter from her crew. There, she spotted Baido's claymore, covered in blood stains, hidden near their weapons, which made her be suspicious. She then sneakily took the claymore to investigate it further, and hurriedly left the ship. When doing research on the weapon though, she noticed that the blood stains weren't from a human, but from a fish, meaning it wasn't used to eliminate Ningguang. She quickly returned the weapon to its owner, and sincerely apologized for her mistake, but Baido mentions that she hadn't been using her sword to fish, so she didn't understand on how it could possibly have bloodstains of one. After that, she visited everyone's homes to do some checkups. When it's time for Xingzhou's house, she went into his room, it looking quite messy, but still normal. She then checks under his bed, and surprisingly finds a brand new, very sharp sword hidden under there. She thinks of the worst possible reason on why the sword was hidden, so she memorized the weapon's details, and awkwardly left their house to question someone. She interviewed the blacksmith, and he says that the sword was only made yesterday, long after Ningguang's elimination, requested by an unknown person, so it wasn't Xingzhou. When confronted by Yanfei, he claims to have never bought a weapon recently, and that he doesn't recognize the sword. This is the first time he has ever seen it, and was very confused on how it got under his bed, similar to Baido. After that occurrence, Yanfei concluded that whoever eliminated Ningguang is trying to frame someone else for the crime, hence for the strange happenings. She's very proud of herself that she didn't fall for any of their tricks, and laughs as the murderer's plan backfired, because she can now clear Baido and Xingzhou, narrowing down the suspects. The next day, Yelan invites the others to another meeting, hoping that it would be their last. She announces to them that she thinks it's time to reveal the last clue she found regarding Ningguang's elimination. She goes out for a second, and comes back bringing a treasure hoarder with her, both of his hands tied. Yunjin suddenly screams that she recognized who the person is. He recently requested to work with her, being one of the actors in her previous play, and was one of the backup dancers in the festival. She was completely unaware, however, that he was a treasure hoarder. Yelan reaffirms her statement, and adds that he was also the one who helped eliminate Ningguang. She claims that she spotted him suspiciously exiting the festival, and she swiftly captured him. After doing some very intense interrogation, the treasure hoarder finally admits to being the one who eliminated Ningguang, but he was only forced to. The real mastermind behind the elimination was one of the vision holders, and he was only just an accomplice. The weapon he used wasn't even his, but was a special weapon, infused by an element from his boss. Yelan then says that she was unsuccessful in getting him to admit the murderer's name, only that they were a vision holder here in the meeting. Everyone looks at each other with suspiciousness, Yunjin being very apologetic, as she was the one who hired him to be a dancer. She promises to do proper checks on the actors next time, and vows to never make it happen again. Yanfei then says to her that now is not the time to feel guilty, as they still have a case to solve, and assures her it's not her fault. Child objects that maybe it was her fault, maybe she was the person who commanded him, as she was previously the treasure hoarder's boss. Yanfei denies it, as she already had previously cleared her. She then asks Yelan if she can interrogate the treasure hoarder on her own, as she might find more clues. Keiching and Child, also wanting to have a go, eagerly requesting they interrogate first. Yelan reluctantly agrees, as she can see that they were doing this to help the mystery end faster. After Child's turn, it was finally Yanfei's chance to investigate and slowly approach the criminal. She asked him basic questions, and he answered very vaguely, clearly trying to hide something, avoiding giving too much information. Not learning anything insightful, she checked around his body, opening one of his pockets to see that there was a thin, blue strand of hair. She showed it to him, and his eyes opened with shock, screaming it was the boss's hair, before quickly stopping himself, looking embarrassed. Yanfei gives him a perplexed look, and turns around to report her findings to the others. They are visibly confused, softly whispering to each other. Yelan says to her that she never found that while she was investigating. Child suddenly stands up from his chair and walks towards them, congratulating Yanfei as she solved the case. He says that they can already solve it through the process of elimination. They know that the murderer uses a close combat weapon and gave it to their accomplice. That it can be someone that wasn't part of the performance, as it was the treasure hoarder who did the act. That they used an hydro-infused weapon, and that the murderer has blue hair, meaning the one who eliminated Ningguang could only be Xingzhou if the clues were accurate. Xingzhou quickly denies, as eliminating Ningguang would go against his ideals. Yanfei would usually agree with Child here, as she knew that Xingzhou didn't fully like Ningguang, but she already cleared him, so she vouches for his innocence. This made Child think again, and he laughs in his sudden realization at how the real murderer almost fooled all of them. He claims it was Yelan who did it. He says that didn't they think it was strange on how she was trying to hide the body? They had no proof that whatever she was saying was true, so what if she lied to them about it being a close combat weapon to clear herself? Hu Tao agreed, thinking her disagreement of her and Zhongli seeing the body was very strange. Xiangling adds that come to think of it, they just blindly trusted her, with no alibi. They stare at her with suspicion, but Yelan seems to be very relaxed, and lets out a small chuckle at the murderer's attempt of framing her. It was Child who did it, he got too impatient, she sweetly says. Everyone is very shocked, including Child, and urgently asks for her proof. Yelan then requests them to recall what Child said, asking Yanfei to borrow her book, where she was writing down everyone's arguments. She shows that Child said that the treasure hoarder used an hydro-infused weapon, but how did he know that, despite never seeing the body, and her only saying that the treasure hoarder used an elemental-infused weapon? She then shows them a picture of Ningguang's eliminated body, where an hydro-infused mark can be shown, So he was correct, but had no way of knowing that, except if he was the one who gave the weapon to him. The treasure hoarder aggressively replies to her that he accidentally told Child about that when he was investigating. Yelan fights back by saying that if he did tell him, why didn't he reveal it to them about it until now, and why is he trying to defend Child? If it actually wasn't him, he would stay quiet, as it would be their victory. The treasure hoarder tries to answer back, but Child stops him, saying to let it be, that they have been caught. He adds that he doesn't really mind though, as he already completed his mission of eliminating Ningguang for the Tsaurus's great plan. Suddenly, a small giggle can be heard in the distance, followed by the loud tapping of heels. They turn around, and their eyes open with shock, as they see Ningguang, alive and well. She says to Child that did they seriously think they will allow another loss to Liyue because of them? Child furiously looks at the treasure hoarder, looking very confused. Yelan then says to them that they seriously underestimated her expertise. She reveals that 1 week before the festival, she was already aware of the elimination that was planning to happen, as one of the criminals he investigated says that he knows someone who boasted about having the opportunity to eliminate Ningguang during the festival, and that it was extremely well planned. She informed Ningguang about this, and they concluded that the best option is to fake her elimination, as it would be the safest for her, and would give them the best opportunity to catch the murderer. During the festival, when the smokes appeared, they knew what was going to happen, and Ningguang placed a dummy look-alike of her, while the real one hid. Then Child stole Shenhe's red ropes to frame someone else, thinking the elimination went smoothly. Hu Tao then now understands why she wanted to hide the body, because it was fake. After that, it was only a matter of time for the murderer to get impatient and slip up while trying to frame someone else. Yanfei was very impressed at how long Child managed to deceive them, but was even more impressed by Yelan's detective skills. Yelan then says that she didn't do it all alone, as everyone greatly helped her solve the case, although she was 90% sure it was Child from the beginning, and just wanted solid proof. Ningguang then asked Child if he had any objections. Child aggressively replies that he had the perfect way to defend himself, and transforms into his foul legacy form, planning to eliminate everyone there, to remove all witnesses. Zhuangli makes a very strong shield for everyone, making no one be hurt, and asks for everyone to move aside. He then makes a contract to Child that if he defeats him, he will no longer harm their nation. And if Child wins, he'll allow him to finish his mission. Child obviously agrees, and the two of them fight. The two of them fight with all of their might, with Zhuangli shielding most of his attacks, and Child perfectly utilizing his delusion and vision. Their brawl was extremely intense, and Child almost broke through his shield after a perfect combo, but Child finally reaches his limit and loses to Zhuangli. Yelan was very surprised by the amount of power they both possess, and wonders if one of them is secretly an Archon. As she was about to arrest Child, one of the Harbingers suddenly teleports behind them, slashing Ningguang, but was luckily shielded by Zhuangli. The Harbinger then takes the weakened Child and teleports him out, saying that they will soon be back, but Child weakly says to just abandon the mission, as he made a contract. The Harbingers teleport out, leaving the vision holders be perplexed, but soon celebrate, as they realized that they were the victors this time. The end. It was Shikano and Heizo's day off, but the gloomy atmosphere he's feeling keeps his mind be restless. He goes to the nearby fireworks shop, thinking exploding some beautiful fireworks would allow his mind to relax, but little did he know, the visit will make his day 10 times worse. As soon as he entered the shop, he is welcomed by an unusual smell, though he's far too familiar with, and quickly goes behind their house, looking for the source of the scent, and what he finds completely ruins his day. He found Juemiya eliminated, with her clothes and hair all being in a complete mess. Kokomi and Goro, who were coincidentally in the Inazuma city, heard his screams, and also went to that area, being just as surprised when they saw her eliminated body. Kokomi tries to heal her, as a last-ditch effort to save her, although she knew that they were far too late. Heizo then takes pictures of the scene, and requests for Kokomi to report what happened to Kujo Sara, and to say that he will be the lead detective in solving the case. The two of them agree and leave, while Heizo goes around to interrogate some people nearby. The only person around was her father, who was completely unaware of what happened. He says that he didn't hear anything at all, although he didn't have good ears to begin with. Heizo then goes back to the body and searches for more clues. She didn't have any marks or scars, meaning she wasn't eliminated by a weapon, although he still can't figure out her cause of death. Her clothes were a mess, and there wasn't anything dangerous nearby, making him think that her elimination wasn't an accident. He could sense subtle elemental traces on the surroundings, but can't figure out what its element is. Heizo then writes a letter, requesting for Kazuha to visit the city, as knowing him, he can likely distinguish what element are the traces. He then takes a couple more pictures, and leaves the crime scene. He starts to walk around, recollecting his thoughts, trying to piece together the puzzle of what happened. He thinks that his day couldn't possibly get even more worse, until he suddenly sees a very injured Ayato hurriedly leaving the Kamisato estate. Heizo quickly goes over to him, asking for what's wrong. The injured man fiercely stares straight into his eyes, looking confused. Ayato then finally speaks, and says to him that he was almost assassinated by someone, and recites the story of what happened. He was just doing his usual 50 pages of work, when someone sneakily struck him from behind, leaving a giant scar in his back. Ayato was luckily experienced in dealing with surprise attacks, so he managed to quickly fight back and escape his enemy before they could end him. He then managed to escape his office, and that's how Heizo found him. Heizo then asks him to describe his assassin's appearance, as he'll report this case to the Tenryou Commission. He apologetically mentions on how his enemy was wearing all black, so he didn't see who it was, but adds that it's likely someone that he previously trusted, as they managed to put his guard down for a split second. Ayaka then suddenly goes over to them after seeing them talking, and gets instantly worried after seeing her brother's injuries. She instantly asks Ayato if he's feeling fine, or if she needs to take him to a healer. He appreciates her kind offer, but says that he's feeling alright, and just needs some rest. She then sincerely apologizes to her brother for not being there to protect him, as she was previously buying groceries. She then asks Heizo to promise help find her big brother's enemy, and he replies that he'll do what he can. The two siblings then leave to go out and drink some tea, while he stays to go recollect his thoughts again. He then has a wonderful idea, and sets off to visit Yaemiko at the shrine, to request for a very special ritual. On his way through the Inazuma city, he encountered a lot of people. He saw Sarah, who seemed to be selling a product, specifically a drink. When she noticed him staring, Sarah immediately sighed, looking very embarrassed for being spotted by the detective. He asks her what she was doing, and she replied that she had recently taken a side job of selling her own drinks to help pay in maintaining the shrine for her statue of Her Excellency, the Almighty Narukami Ogasho, God of Thunder. He chuckles at her devotion to the Shogun, but buys one of her drinks, having heard rumors that it helps calm people down. Next, he encountered Toma, who seemed to be shopping for the clan, and he notifies him on the tragic events that happened to his master. He instantly grabs all of his shopping bags, and quickly leaves to go check on his master, sincerely thanking him for the information. After a couple more minutes of walking, he encounters Ito, who seemed to be troubled with something. The Oni asks him if he had any recommendations on what to buy that is cheap, that he can give to his bro that he recently heard was injured. He went all over the city, but they were always way too expensive, or the vendor just didn't allow him to buy. Heizo starts to think, and suddenly remembers her last encounter with Sarah. He recommends to him to buy one of Sarah's drinks, as it's relatively cheap, but Ito refuses at first, not wanting to buy something from that Tengu, but eventually gives in when he has nowhere else to go. After a couple more minutes, he finally reaches the Narukami shrine, without any more distractions. He then asks Yaemiko if he could talk to Yaemi's ghost. He has heard rumors before that she is skilled enough to do that, and tries his luck to see if it's true. Miko opens her eyes surprisingly, as no one has ever requested that from her before. She says that she is indeed capable of doing that, but it will be a very high price, and you could only talk to the ghost for a few seconds. Heizo laughingly agrees at the offer, as the Tenryou Commission is the one paying anyway. Miko then starts to prepare a very special type of ritual that only a few people have witnessed, while Heizo starts to wonder on what will happen. When she's finished, a weird-looking hologram suddenly appears in front of them, but without anyone appearing. Miko claims that her ghost doesn't like shrine maidens, and gives her staff to Heizo for him to give it a try. When he held it, he instantly gets transported into the border, where Yoimiya's ghost can be seen directly in front of him. He asks on what was the last thing she remembered when she was alive, and the ghost just stares at him for a long time before finally speaking, sounding sorrowful. She says, "Not aloud, but you are? My body is shaking too much. Cold, but not like how I remembered. Burned, too, brightly." After that, she instantly disappears, and Heizo gets transported back into the actual world, still being speechless about the entire experience. The clues he found was pretty helpful, so he'd say that 500,000 mora payment was definitely worth it. After the whole ordeal, Heizo requested for every Inazuma Vision holder to all have a meeting, as he thinks he's very close in solving the mystery. Almost everyone is present already in the meeting, although some are running very late. Ayaka arrives and gives her big brother one of Sarah's special drinks, and says that it's a gift from his self-proclaimed best friend Ito. 10 minutes later, the meeting finally starts, but Kazuha is absent for now, as his ship hasn't reached the nation of Inazuma yet. Heizo starts off by presenting all the clues he has found, from how Yoimiya didn't have a scar, and on how her cause of death is still unknown, but there are elemental traces all over the scene. Heizo thinks that the culprit for Ayato's failed assassination, and for the fireworks girl elimination, is in their meeting right now. The question, if it's committed by the same person, is still unknown. Ito dramatically gasps, but Shinobu punches him, and tells him to stay quiet when someone is explaining something that's extremely serious. Ayato chuckles at their bickering, and takes a sip of his drink, before his eyes quickly open with shock. He spits out the beverage, and screams that his drink has poison in it. He then quickly leaves to go to the bathroom, and mentions that he was lucky that he had experienced it before in the past, and could tell when a food or drink has been messed with before it's too late. Everyone then angrily stares at each other. Ayaka, Ito, and Sarah then starts blaming each other on who poisoned Ayato's drink. Ayaka blames Ito for the crime, as he handed her the beverage, saying to give it to her brother, as he will be running late in the meeting. She feels foolish for not realizing that this was just his plan to poison him. The Oni snaps back, declaring that he never did such a thing, because that would be a very terrible idea for a gift. Shinobu helps defend him, saying that he would never do such a thing, never in a million years. Ito stands from his chair again, and angrily points at Sarah, blaming her for the poison. When he bought a drink, she must have tampered with it, after hearing that it was going to be his gift to the commissioner, because she probably got jealous of their very awesome friendship. Sarah then lightly strikes him, replying that he missed a very crucial detail. During their entire conversation, he never told her once that it was a gift for Ayato, only that the drink wasn't for him, but a gift for someone else. He even teased him that she likely has never heard of this person, so there was absolutely no way she could have planned it out. Heizo thinks of the possibility that it could still be a coincidence, but luckily for her, he doesn't believe in coincidences. If Sarah had to guess, she would blame Ayaka for the poison, as knowing Ito and his past crime records, he would never do something as terrible as this, like Shinobu said. Although Ayaka eliminating her own brother also doesn't make sense to her. Ayaka instantly denies it, and still believes it's Ito, Toma backing her up. Everyone then picks a side on who they personally trust, and a very intense argument between the whole group occurs. Heizo quickly shuts it down, mentioning on how they lack information, so even if they argued for hours, they wouldn't be able to make a solid conclusion yet, only that the three are the suspects. Although, he is already confident that he figured out who it is, but still needs to find their motive, so stays quiet for now. He then dismisses their meeting, and warns everyone to be careful, as the murderer might plan to eliminate again, specifically mentioning Ayato. He chuckles, saying he's underestimating him, and Toma tells Heizo not to worry, as he promises to protect his masters. Later, Kazuha finally arrives at Inazuma, and Heizo happily greets him. He then informs him about the most recent news and changes in the two tragic events. Kazuha, wanting to help, requests he take him to the crime scene. At the fireworks shop, Kazuha was sadly unable to identify what element were the traces, but can smell a faint scent of purity everywhere around the house. Heizo then invites him to lunch, which he accepts, and they start discussing about the mystery. The detective asks him on what he thought was the murderer's motive, based on the information he showed, and Kazuha paused, thought for a second, and said, "It's greed." He can't really explain it, but that's what the sound of nature was hinting at. This made his head tilt from interest. After their lunch, he then spots Miko, and bids his friend farewell, as he now has other business to deal with. Before Miko can leave the area, Heizo asks her one more time if he can talk to Yoimiya's ghost again, trying to gather more clues. Miko generously agrees to do so, and she can now even extend their talk, but the payment this time will be doubled, since the ritual consumes a lot of her energy. He excitedly agrees at her proposal, and says he'll pay them more later. 1 hour later, they arrived at her shrine. Miko does her really special ritual again, but this time, with more sigils surrounding her. When she's finished, the same hologram from before appeared again, but looking much bigger. She handed her staff to him, and being experienced this time, he wasn't as freaked out when he gets transported to the border, Yoimiya's ghost staring blankly at him. Heizo noticed on how the staff he was holding was making her uncomfortable, so he hid it behind his back, which seemed to work. He asks her on what were the last things she felt before her murder, and what did she think was their motive for getting rid of you. The ghost sheepishly says, "Winter, yes, my last memory. Don't feel sad. I am only the double, the true bird, flies free. I did this all for Inazuma. I'm sorry, Kamisato, it was necessary. Just hoping my wish comes true." What was their name again? Hold on. Oh, yes, the well-known. Without warning, the ghost disappears, and Heizo gets transported back into the real world, being confused about the abrupt ending. Miko says to him that someone else is blocking her spell, hence, she couldn't maintain it for long, and had to end it quickly. If she hadn't done so, the counter spell might have made him be trapped in the border forever, a very scary thought. He thanks her for the help, and says that his new information does make things a lot more complicated, but definitely makes the mystery more interesting to solve. Miko is glad to hear that, and thinks that this murder mystery should be definitely written in a novel. Suddenly, Sarah comes barging through the shrine, with clear urgency in her voice. She sighs when she finally found the detective, and exhaustedly walks over to him. She claims that after taking a very close look at the pictures he gave in their meeting, she has found new major clues that will definitely aid him. Sarah then gives Heizo the 2 pictures, and requests for him to look closely. He doesn't understand it at first, but soon realizes something is odd. In the first picture, you can find a barrel in the background, and in the second picture, it completely disappears. After taking a more closer look, you can see Sayu's tail in the barrel, meaning she must have witnessed the elimination happen, or most likely, is the one who committed it. He leaves, feeling determined, and waves at the 2 of them goodbye. Miko then suddenly teleports to him, saying he had forgotten her 1 million more payment. Heizo laughs it off, and says for her to not worry, as Sarah is right there, if Miko has inquiries. Sarah confusingly questions on what payment, and Heizo runs off, not elaborating. Heizo runs around all over the city, looking for the small nimble ninja, a task that is a lot harder than he expected. After hours of searching, he finally found her, sleeping in the forest. He hurriedly wakes Aru up, making her jump in shock, almost accidentally falling over. She wasn't expecting any visitors today, as it was her day off, and gets irritated at him for ruining her sleep. Heizo jokingly replies that she will definitely get more than enough sleep when she's at prison for her crimes. Wait, what? Sayu confusingly screams, saying she didn't do anything wrong, she promises. He then shows her the pictures of Yuimiya's body, where the barrel can be seen in the background, and it clearly having Sayu's tail. This makes her become the most likely suspect for the elimination. She saw her eliminated body before anyone else, yet didn't even try to report it at all. To add to this, Sayu tried to hide from him when she had no reason to, unless she was the one who got rid of her. He thinks that this mystery is solved unless she can provide good reasonings. Sayu then defensively claims that he's got it all wrong, and that she will tell the story of what happened, if it means proving her innocence, although it should have been kept a secret. Earlier, before the elimination, she had received a commission from Yuimiya, stating for her to visit the fireworks shop, and then put a disguise on her, making her look completely like Kujo-Sara. She doesn't know much on why Yuimiya wanted to look like Sarah, and just told the ninja that it was for a special mission that no one knows about. She remembered her looking sad, although desperately tried to hide it with her joyful attitude. After that, her commission was done, and went back to the estate. The princess asked on where did she go, and she tells her about the commission. Ayaka is extremely shocked by her announcement, and urges her to check up on the fireworks girl, telling her to keep the whole affair a secret. She does what she's told, and goes to the shop to find Yuimiya eliminated. She was about to report it, but remembered her past lessons on how you might catch the murderer if you stay in the crime scene, as they might come back to hide the body or get rid of their fingerprints, so she chose to stay, hide, and wait. She shamefully says that the plan didn't go well at all, as Heizo arrived, and it obviously wasn't him who committed the crime. She then realized on how just hiding there makes her look extremely suspicious, so she sneakily left, just hoping no one saw her, and unluckily, Heizo found her. After the story, he nods and snaps his fingers, thanking her for her time. Sayu is confused on how easily he believed him when he was hard accusing her a second before. Heizo then apologizes, saying he knew that it wasn't her who did it, and just pretended to be accusing the ninja, so she would tell the story, knowing that it was supposed to be a secret. Sayu is annoyed by his cleverness, and angrily sleeps back again. As he stares at her, he starts to realize that maybe a nap could help his brain think, as he is still missing the one last crucial detail that would tie everything together. The detail being on how she was eliminated. He decides to doze off near a lake at the forest, closing his eyes, proceeding to fall into a deep sleep. Suddenly, he starts dreaming about being in the ocean, being surrounded by nothing but water. He started feeling the water, and it felt very cold, not in a pleasant way. The water was very nice though, so he tried to tell others to jump in, but his whole body gets submerged in the water, making it impossible for him to scream. When he finally realizes something crucial, and he wakes up, feeling very tired, but determined to solve the case. He invites every vision holder to a special emergency meeting again, Heizo thinking that this would be their last, as he found the last piece of the puzzle. As soon as everyone arrives, he aggressively starts by accusing Ayaka for attempting to assassinate the commissioner. Her eyes widen, and she insisted that he has made a mistake, as she was completely innocent, but Heizo stands his ground, being confident she is guilty. In Ayato's first assassination, Ayaka said that she couldn't protect him because she was buying groceries, but when he arrived in Inazuma, Toma was there, shopping for the clan, alone, meaning she lied. She's also a sword user, perfectly matching with his scar, someone that Ayato trusts, and is someone that the guards trusted, as the assassin easily got inside their office. What really solidified it was the next attempt, the tampered beverage. Poison can only be bought by officials, and is strictly illegal to be bought by criminals, which Ito is clearing him. That leaves only Sarah and Ayaka. Since Ito has never mentioned to her that the drink he was buying was for Ayato, that could only mean that she poisoned all, or most of the drinks, but in that case, countless more poisoning reports would have occurred in Inazuma, and currently, only Ayato is the one who got poisoned by the drink. He claims that Ayaka is the culprit for both of the attempts, and is Ayato's assassin. Tears filled her eyes, turning her face away, before completely leaving the table, to go hide in the bathroom, glancing at his brother, before hurriedly closing the door. Kokomi wonders on what could have been her motive, hypothesizing that she wanted to be the head of the clan. Ito then questions if he knows who eliminated Liyue, as he's afraid Heizo had forgotten about that part. He thought about it all day, on who could be her murderer, and concluded that the best way to know that is by knowing her cause of death. He thought it was by freezing, at first, because of the shaking and cold line, but in her second message, she mentioned on how she last remembered winter, and if they put the two lines together, it conveys that she felt cold, but not like winter, so not something like ice, snow or cryo. It wasn't until the dream last night that he finally understood the sensation she was trying to convey. She was eliminated by drowning in cold water, perfectly matching up with the few descriptions she provided. Since the place she got eliminated in doesn't have any near water source at all, it means that the water was taken to her instead, and that the imposter extremely likely wields a hydrovision. There are only two of them in this meeting, Ayato and Kokomi, but he's absolutely sure it was Ayato that was guilty. Judging by Ayaka's demeanor, she knows who it is as well, ever since the beginning. Kokomi was also with Goro, giving her a strong clear. He then recites on what he thinks were the timeline of events, based on the clues he has found, that would answer the question on what were the motives of the Kamisato siblings. Ayato plans to eliminate Kujo-sara. The plan was very likely politically motivated, to keep their clan have a stronger image, but when her sister heard the scheme, she didn't approve of it, thinking it's too harsh, but he continued with it anyway. Out of guilt, Ayaka told Liyue about his brother's plan, and on how Sarah might be gone tomorrow morning. The fireworks girl was instantly against that happening, as that will cause chaos in Inazuma, and wonders if she can prevent it from occurring. That's when she gave the idea of disguising into Kujo-sara, so she would be eliminated instead, not the real one, making it be less impactful to the nation, and by that time, hopefully Ayato changed his mind. Ayaka disagreed with her doing it, but tomorrow morning, she does it anyway, for the sake of the future of Inazuma. Ayato then eliminates her, thinking it's Kujo-sara, but it wasn't. After that, Ayato didn't stop his plan, unlike she had hoped for. So the princess had no choice but to stop her own brother, or else her sacrifice would be in vain. Heizo slowly but confidently says that those were the motives behind the Kamisato siblings. Ayato stands up from his chair, laughing like a maniac, and applauded him for finding out his big secret that didn't even succeed. He then angrily tells him that is it so wrong that they get ahead this time, as they had already given the others quite the chance. Ayaka, who heard everything, loudly opens the door, and reveals that his brother has been acting extremely weird, absolutely nothing like him at all. Raiden then walks to the exit, turning back to the commissioner. She says that he should see her later, in Tenshukaku, where his divine punishment awaits. The effects of the Tatarigami were a lot better than I expected, although I thought he would be able to cause more chaos. I'm sorry Kamisato clan, it's part of war. The end. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribe, and like, if you ended up enjoying this video, as I put a lot of effort into it. Comment below on what you thought about this story, and if you managed to catch the murderer. Thank you for all the support in this series. Bye.